Hello, my name is Kelly Bailey. I'm the Social Emotional Learning Specialist for the Maine Department of Education. I put together this brief webinar so that we could learn about the importance of regulation and co-regulation for our students. At the Department of Education and on behalf of the Commissioner, I'd like to thank everyone for your dedication to your field and to your students. And we recognize and understand that this coming back to school has been an incredibly stressful journey. So thank you for just being the best educators in the state of Maine and support staff. Thank you for all of you who have reached out and requested support, especially in the area of mental health and social emotional learning for your students and for yourselves. My colleagues and I have had the great pleasure and blessing to be able to provide ongoing support since COVID-19 hit, and we've heard from hundreds of educators across the state of how responsive the Department of Education is and how grateful you are. So thank you very much for those wonderful and heartfelt messages of gratitude. I'm going to just share my screen so that we can get moving with this webinar. For COVID, I had no idea how to do this, so I'm pretty proud of myself, but it still takes me a second. So thanks for your patience. So I'm going to just move myself down here in the corner. For any of you who know me and have been part of my content hours since March, you know that I often talk about a strategy for dealing with anxiety and stress by riding the wave. It's something that I learned during my SEL training and mindfulness training, and it's really a wonderful coping mechanism, because when we can think of riding the wave, then we know that this too shall pass. And when we can project the worst case scenario and realize that we're still kind of on the board and we're moving, and that in the moment we're okay, it just gives us a sense of security. So this webinar is really about an SEL and trauma-informed approach to returning to our Maine schools. And we know that SEL and trauma-informed schools and communities are more important now than they've ever been before. Just having an increased awareness of ourselves as educators and being in right connection with our heart and our body and our mind, so that our students can count on us to help them feel safe, connected, and okay as they return to the classroom. Last spring, every school in the state of Maine abruptly closed, and because of the global pandemic of COVID-19, it left school staff and students and communities and families in a constant state of uncertainty and vacillating through fear and stress and grief. Were emotions that were running high for all of us. But regardless of that, Maine educators spurred into action. You stepped up to the plate. You did the big work of teaching remotely. No one had any preparation for this, and you just did it. And so you were thrown into this atmosphere of uncertainty, and you continued to do it day after day after day after day. And it wasn't lost on any of us at the Department of Education, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to partner with so many. The content hours that we were able to provide for SEL and mental health, and also from all of our specialists in the content areas. We're grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with you and to work with you so that we can be there for students. But the question is, how have you coped, and where is your stress right now? When we know when there is persistent and chronic stress for long periods of time, that the body and the mind and the heart really cannot stay in that congruent and just right place. And so it's super important for us to really be mindful of that and to be thinking on purpose. Am I still in that heightened state of stress, or am I in a place where I can be regulated, because students are coming through the door and counting on us? COVID-19 stressors have been big. The news, we are bombarded by news of people across the country and the globe who have died from COVID-19. The fear of getting sick is around us everywhere. Concern for self and others is high. You know, we've all been in a state of social isolation and social disruption. For many of us, the financial impact has been great, and we've just been really in this place of work, family fear. And despite of the stressors that we've been under, we are now looking at the green light and going back in the green zone. And, you know, all of this is very, very different. Buses are coming, they're going to be bringing these children, they're going to get dropped off, and nothing about this is normal. Nothing about the return to school in this way is normal, but we can help one another be regulated and normalize this for our students. Every year, school ends and students are out for 2.5 to 3 months, and there's an adjustment period. They have to come back and adjust from, you know, the disruption in their routine. But it's this, of course, this year is a very unprecedented year, and everybody is returning with the sense of how, what is it going to be like, and how are we going to make this work? The pandemic has really upset everyone's routine, adults and children alike. Consistency and stability and structure have been disproportionate. The stresses caused by this dysregulation of our systems has been is prevalent even in the most regulated human beings. You know, do we keep our social distance? Do we wear the mask? You know, first we wear the mask, even, you know, just the concern about whether or not we're going to have toilet paper in our state and across the country is something that we've never had to deal with before. The shelves in the grocery stores not having the supplies that we need, and everybody in this, you know, chronic state of fear. Also during this time, our political climate was forever changed with the killing of George Floyd and the voices of so many Americans across the country. And also we are in an upcoming election, and this just adds a tremendous amount of stress. We have been bombarded with our news and the media and social media, and you know, just even having conflict within our own families and friends. This uncertainty has come from all sides, and we've been getting it for a very long time. So we must be really mindful that over the past 6 months, our students have lost all sense of school routine, and that's going to impact how they behave and how they manage and navigate being in your classrooms. The effects of not having a routine over the past 6 months may be this, that you know, we know that there's been inconsistencies in sleeping and waking cycles, even for adults. Even in my own family, we've been staying up later, getting up later. It's just a crazy time. Summertime seems to always be that way, but it's been a longer time for that. Our students have not had a set of expectations to complete schoolwork. They've had free range in their preferred activities. There've been social isolation, not having to follow rules or specific structures, and there's definitely been an upset in schedules and routines. On top of that, our students have also spent more time on the screen, you know, in handheld devices, behind a computer, playing games on TV. And we know that there's a lasting and long-term impact for increased screen time for our youth. This is associated with lower psychological well-being, increased possibilities for depression and anxiety due to the isolation, decreased self-control, lower emotional stability, decreased attention and focus to socialization, and definitely a decrease in the ability to maintain attention and focus and complete tasks, especially those not preferred. So we need to expect and be prepared to expect dysregulated students. And what does that mean to be dysregulated? It means that the system, the body, is not prepared in a congruent way to learn. We may see more students be hypervigilant and in our survival mode. We know that the students that we worry about, those students who may not have, or we know do not have and haven't had loving, caring homes to be in with enough food and enough, enough everything that they need to survive. We have worried, you have worried about those students. You know who they are, and they have weighed heavily on your mind. These students are always in a state of hypervigilance and survival. But we can expect that even the most regulated students coming from the most, secure environments and homes have been under stress, and that these students will behave, their emotions will be high, and their behaviors will be demonstrated, in ways that may not be as predictable as they had before. So it's up to us to really make sure that we're in that regulated state. We all know, and we've all been well trained in adverse childhood experiences. We know that the lasting effects of adverse childhood experience are plentiful and lifelong. We know that people who have carry history of trauma have difficulties with neurodevelopmental milestones, decreased resilience. They're at risk for academic difficulties, suffer from confidence and trust issues, have lifelong health issues, and demonstrate at-risk behaviors. Those students that who have ACEs are going to be compounded by the stress that they've been under, and the limited resources that they've had over the past 6 months. We also know that students who are in a fight, flight, freeze, back brain protection place will have difficulty with communicating. And remember, communication is the highest order. It's the perceptual, abstract reasoning, the language brain. We lose that sense of being able to reason and have responses that make sense when we're in that survival place, because the body is trying to survive and trying to get away from the danger. And this can be danger that is actually real or a perceived threat. The body does not differentiate. It is the same, and the response and the reaction will be the same. And none of us are immune to that. So just a review and a reminder about the brain. Remember that the brain is powerful, and it has an immense capacity for neuroplasticity. Dr. Dan Siegel talks a lot about the hand-brain model, and we know that when we teach children about their brain, and the brain stem is where that's where the sensory system of survival will be, and that will keep us safe. And so we want our children, our students, to be here in the prefrontal cortex, which is your critical thinking brain, your executive function, your planning, your remembering, organization. And that only is optimally working when we feel safe, connected, and loved, and in right relationship with one another. But if we're upset or overwhelmed or scared, and chronically so, the prefrontal cortex and the neurochemistry and the hormones that support that, meaning dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, those hormones and neurochemicals will become boggy and offline, because they will be replaced by cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. And so basically, flip your lid, and the amygdala is the part of the brain that will react and keep you safe. So when we spend time regulating ourselves, and we really make that a priority, then we know that we will be here, and students will we have mirror neurons, and students will respond to our okayness. And that happens when we spend time in our own self-awareness, asking ourselves the questions: how prepared am I to be regulated? How prepared am I right in this moment to co-regulate my students? And know that humans require, especially children, even middle school and high school and young adults, require the support of a regulated adult to help them co-regulate. So that means we have to ask ourselves every single day: am I prepared? Am I regulated? Am I ready to do this? And what that means is stepping outside of automaticity. When you wake up in the morning, using positive, powerful self-talk, and expressing gratitude for the opportunity to go to work and to be part of mentoring and coaching students, both big and small, a part of it through their life journey, and not taking that for granted, and not getting mired and stuck in emotions that will drive your behavior and attention in ways that won't be productive for you. So taking a minute and stretching before you get out of bed, and giving a nod of gratitude for your sight and your hearing and your physicality, being able to move your limbs, moving your feet off the bed and actually feeling your feet hit the floor, and being very purposeful. Breathe a few moments instead of just, hitting the alarm, springing out of bed, and getting ourselves into that powerful, urgent way of getting ourselves out the door. When we are not in a connected place, everything feels urgent, and that will also transfer to how we communicate and attend to our students. So the key areas of growth, are really about bridging the heart and the mind and the brain together, building our self-awareness, having empathy and compassion, that we're doing the best that we can, not being too hard on ourselves when we're trying to get through something that nobody's ever been through before. And know that if I am not in a place where I'm checking in with myself and checking my social emotional pulse, then I will not have a great ability to self-regulate. So again, begin with self-awareness. Ask yourself each day, how am I feeling right this moment? Where does that feeling live in my body? Noticing, recognizing, taking a couple of slow, deep breaths, giving your body and your system just a moment to reset before you head out the door. We only can really make a true impact on other people in a healthy, powerfully positive way when we are in right connection and in congruence with our own selves. So what that means is always having an understanding of our own stress, noticing that the stress of the mind and the body will be contingent upon our emotional state, and when we have a good understanding of our thoughts and our feelings, then those things will be what we show in our behaviors. So notice what the body is saying. Notice if you're having any aches and pains, or if you're walking around with your shoulders up over, by your ears, and notice if you're holding tension, and purposefully give yourself small moments each day to breathe on purpose. Notice what the mind is doing. Is it spending lots of time in worry or muddled thinking? Are you clear in your decisiveness? Or are you really having difficulty making decisions, or are they hasty decisions? Is there an urgency about, are we looping and perseverating in our worry and fear? What is the emotional state of our lives? Do we notice that we're, depressed, or are we calm? Are we feeling alienated? Is there a loss of confidence in what we're doing? And, how does that look in the behaviors that we show to the world? If we don't see ourselves, then we can't understand our own impact on other people. And this is just a profound statement to me. Building our own self-awareness and helping us to have a better understanding of our thoughts and our feelings and our reactions and our habits and our perceptions and our biases, our judgments about ourselves and other people is really, really, really the foundation of being a human being. And I believe with my whole heart that teachers' primary job is to grow good humans. We don't teach math or science or second grade or eighth grade. We don't teach freshmen or seniors. We teach human beings, and we are teaching human beings. You are teaching human beings in a global pandemic. This is probably never going to happen in our lifetime again. Let's hope that it doesn't. And so we have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of one another. And building a trauma SEL informed climate and culture in our schools is the most important thing that we can do. Spending time helping kids reacclimate, helping you reacclimate, being okay, and making sure that your students know that they are okay. Taking away that urgency is the most important, powerful thing that you can do in these first few days, first few weeks, first few months, because it doesn't matter how urgent you are and how much you think you need to catch up your students from all of the time that they've missed. If they're in a state of survival, you can pound the hammer right on, I think that's a walnut or a pecan, I don't know what it is, but you can pound it over and over and over again. It will not stick. Long past is the thinking that we can peel back the head and pour knowledge into the brain and put it back in and hope it sticks. It doesn't. We know more now about the brain and the neurochemistry of fight, flight, freeze, and what happens when we're in stress and what happens when we carry trauma. We know that that's not how human beings learn. And we know that in order for us to learn optimally, we have to be okay. So this begins again with your own self-awareness, asking yourself each day, how am I doing? What do I need? What's happening? Taking small moments to breathe. You know, even me, the mindful SEL person for the state of Maine, I had to remember that. So my daughter, who's a middle school teacher at Bucksport area middle school, she said, "Mom, it's time for you to get a watch that reminds you to stand up and to move, because I can get mired in this seat for hours and hours and hours and be completely just lost in the job and what I need to do and what I have to do, and forget to drink water." So, you know, it's funny that now we have watches that beep or tell us that, you know, it's time to stand or it's time to get a drink of water, and maybe that's what we need. But self-care is so important. We need to remember to take care of our minds, take care of our bodies, take care of our bellies. And, you know, an easy mindful practice for that is just a gentle body scan, thinking, going from the ground up to your head, just noticing your toes. And we can actually move through one really quickly right now. Just maybe notice your toes and wiggle them. Bring your awareness to your ankles. Maybe roll your feet. Notice your knees and your hips. Let your legs become long and heavy. Spend some time on your core, just noticing your breathing in and out. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Your heart is beating. Your belly and your chest are expanding with each in-breath, and resetting with each out-breath. Notice your shoulders. Let your arms be long. Opening your hands slowly. Notice your neck, your jaw. Allow space between your top teeth and your bottom teeth. Allow the tongue just to disengage. Notice any stress around your eyes or eyebrows. Hover your awareness just gently above your head, and then sweep from the head to the toes and then back again at the heart, and just 3 more slow, deep breaths. Remember again, mind science and brain science tells us that the mind will wander 47% of the time that we're awake. We'll be engaged in a memory, having a thought, or making a plan. And so if we're in right connection with ourselves, then, and we take a couple of seconds or moments a day just to take slow, deep breaths, it helps to help us stay regulated. That's what self-regulation is. Human beings who possess a strong self-management, it's our second SEL skill, our first self-aware. And people who are self-aware and have good self-management skills are able to cope with change and manage emotions and feelings. They respond rather than react to situations and other human beings. They have a higher level of organization and cognitive flexibility, adaptation, find meaning in circumstances, and really have a resilient core. We're not born with resilience. Resilience is something we learn, and it's taught to us, and we learn it through trial and error and overcoming adversity. And it's not something we can just do. It's something we have to experience, and we have to have somebody who's a buffer for us to help us to get back up when we're knocked down. So this is, you know, when we think about SEL, And it is not separate from academics. It's so important. It's the social emotional foundation of who we are as human beings. And we're not robots. We're not people just moving from class to class to class and getting as much information as we can and hoping that we'll be, be able to get to where we're supposed to go. We're meant to thrive in the world and not simply just survive. And in order to do that, we need to have teachers who are regulated and checking in with their own emotional pulse each and every day, and also checking in with your students' emotional pulse. So if you are teaching remotely or in real time, just pay attention on purpose to your regulation or dysregulation. Breathe before you begin your day. Practice gratitude. Simple gratitude for your sight, your hearing, your body, your able body, the car that you can drive, the job that you have. Begin a practice of every morning and night making sure that you're regulated, not going to sleep in a dysregulated, wound up, stressful state. Because when we sleep, if we're not getting that restorative sleep, then cortisol is actually activating in our body, and it makes it very difficult for us to regulate that in the morning. Practice positive self-talk. Be aware of your own stress and trauma and the impact that that has on your students and your family. Remember those mirror neurons, that if you come through your classroom and you're upset or you're frustrated or you're agitated, students are going to pick up on that. Students who are already in a dysregulated state will become more heightened in their dysregulation. It's not a mystery. This is actual mirror neurons just showing you back what you're giving. So just take time to breathe, implement breath breaks in your classroom, do check-ins for yourself, actually telling your students, I'm feeling a little stressed about this, I'm flipping my lid. Teach your kids about their brain. There are so many wonderful YouTube videos and lots of resources on my page, the SEL page, in the Maine Department of Education. I have a ton of free resources that you can use. I've done all the work for you, so I can send anybody. You can just look on my page, and it's actually as part of this backpack of resources that that our commissioners has asked us to put together. But basically, just mindfulness is the best way to do that. And when we talk about mindfulness, it's an intentionality. It's a purposeful intention and attention to our lives, and not just going through the motions. Whoops, that always skips. I love this quick video on co-regulation. Really remember that co-regulation is defined simply as a warm and responsive interaction, providing support and coaching and modeling to children to help understand and express and modulate their thoughts. It is the key to positive human connection, and it really is about meeting students where they're at and not jumping towards our agenda with urgency for what we need to teach. So I believe this person is an occupational therapist, and I think she sums it up beautifully.
In this quick couple of minutes, I want to share another strategy with you as the school year begins for co-regulation of our children and adolescents. We know that many of our children who come into our classrooms and our adolescents did not have a caregiver who was consistently regulating all of the stimuli that come from the environment. And when our children and adolescents come in that hypervigilant or hyperarousal or hypo, just very, very lethargic, many times what's happening is that there is a sensory issue that as an educator, whether I'm a teacher, counselor, social worker, I can address through bell work, brain-aligned bell work, through community morning meetings, and through transitions and routines throughout the day. So today I want to share one of my favorite. The language of the brainstem is sensation. And if we are going to really improve academics and cognition, we've got to help that child or adolescent starting from the brainstem, meeting them in brain development, not so much academics, but meeting them in the language of where they are currently functioning. I love what Dr. Bruce Perry states. He says that to change a region, to increase activation of a region in the brain, we've got to be in that region. So the language of the brainstem is sensation. And when the students come in the morning, you could have a sensation word wall. You could have a jar. I love like just little containers that have sensations. The students can identify, they can choose a sensation off the word wall, or they can draw one that really identifies how they're feeling in their bodies. Because we need to remember that when a child is carrying in significant adversity, those memories are implicit, meaning they are unconscious. They are held in the body, so they are sensory and motor sensations that are held in the body. They're not necessarily remembered or known. So to identify one, giving it a shape, drawing it out, giving it a color, giving it a size, really helps to get whatever is in here just outside and contained so that it's easier to deal with. It really is regulation. Let me give you a couple examples of these. Feathery is a sensation, woozy, tingly, sizzly, smooth, numb, teary, fuzzy, tense, soft, slow, sharp, pointy, gooey, jumpy, gritty, edgy, groggy, jittery, sticky, glassy, clammy, hot. All of these name a sensation, which is what the brain stem can relate to. And when you can draw it, when you can give it a shape and give it a size, explain if it's light or if it's heavy, those are ways that we can actually regulate that nervous system before we begin any academic work. So use a sensation word wall. You can have a jar of sensations and make this a part of your routine as often as you need to.
I think that's really important for us to remember that before we start our day, it's important to check in. And as students are going to be expected to spend more time with masks on their faces and regulating themselves with regard to space, and know that our students who struggle with that, children who are on the spectrum, students who have difficulty with understanding visual spatial things, our OTs are going to be, standing ready to help with that. But this is just going to be incredibly taxing for them. Anytime that they're feeling agitated, or you're noticing that the sensory information is getting exasperated, it's important for you to recognize that and to really teach students. There's something incredibly powerful about understanding and knowing that it's not their fault, that their body and their brain are in a dysregulated state, and that having opportunities throughout the day, built in purposeful activities to calm the central nervous system and to calm the classroom, and to actually use that language for yourself is very empowering for students. So let me see. Excuse me. Co-regulation for students who are at risk. Neuroscience really shows us that human beings develop the ability to emotionally self-regulate through connections with reliable, safe caregivers who can soothe and model, and that is the process of co-regulation. And the only way that we can do that, to provide a co-regulation environment, is to be regulated ourselves. Children who have not experienced reliable, safe adult presence in their lives are going to have a lot of difficulty with regulating their own emotions and impulses, because they have hyper or hypovigilance, aka they're in survival mode. And often educators are not equipped or have not received the trauma-informed training to support dysregulated students, so they end up reacting rather than responding to the behaviors that they see from these kiddos. So I just want to go through co-regulation and talking about that from preschool to adulthood, young adulthood. During the preschool years, children are beginning to build their motor and language skills. They continue to have very strong emotions that far outweigh their emerging skills of fine motor, gross motor. they experience rapid brain development associated with self-regulation, and it makes them just prime for our ability to help them co-regulate. It's an optimal time for caregivers to provide structure and predictability and routine, and helping them to self-soothe and have calm down strategies. This is a great age group to be introducing mindfulness to. Some co-regulation for preschool strategies is always to provide that warmth and that nurturing, anticipating the needs, responding to cues quickly, and always speaking in a calm and caring, affectionate tone. Providing the structure and predictability and routine is key, and providing physical and emotional comfort when students are distressed or dysregulated. This is the thing that's going to be so taxing and tricky and difficult for our preschool teachers, especially our preschool K1 to, we're so used to, I was in a school for the last 10 years working in pre-K through sixth grade, and how much of what we do to help regulate and co-regulate our students is through touch and comfort. And so this is going to be, my heart is with you, because it's going to be so difficult to comply with the CDC guidelines and not not be in close physical contact with these little buggers. Co-regulation for elementary students, the same thing. During the elementary years, these kids are gaining more control over their attention and emotions and behaviors. They have a growing ability to manage their impulses and delay their gratification, and they're becoming more aware of their ability to co-regulate with younger children. So ongoing co-regulation for elementary students is incredibly important, and this is a relatively stable period of time for them, because they have many years in the elementary to grow, and to grow with their resilience and their trust, and that only happens when they are with predictable and consistent adults. What does this look like for elementary students? Again, it's always about providing that warm, nurturing, supportive environment, having right connection with students, checking our judgment, and noticing how we perceive students who come through the door who maybe aren't ready or who are dysregulated. Does that trigger us in some way? Checking that, being curious about it, and then changing that. Notice and recognize if you are triggered by some students who are disorganized and reactive, making sure that you're spending time implementing calming down strategies, using mindfulness, go noodle, having relaxation, yoga, mindful movements, taking a mindful safari, making sure that you're really creating an experiential learning, teaching and supporting organization and planning, and continuing to provide those clear rules and structure. What about our middle school and our adolescent students? What do they need? In adolescence, the brain architecture, once again, really goes under significant changes, and it brings both benefits and challenges for self-regulation. In the early mid-adolescent, the brain system that processes emotions and seeks rewards are more developed than the cognitive controlled systems that require responsible decision making and future planning. These kids are not thinking about the future for the most part. They are drawn to choices that will offer short-term reward rather than long-term benefit. These kiddos are going to be heavily swayed by their emotions, by peer pressure, and can be very prone to poor decision making. So the executive function brain is not engaged most of the time during adolescence. We know that humans who are in this age range are, if they're have a tendency for thrill seeking, and if they're just not paying attention on purpose, they will not be able to think before they speak or think before they act. And so they require us to be present and calm and regulated for them now more than ever before. They need for us to be in healthy, positive relationships with them in a caring, regulated way, not making judgments. It's really important too for me to point out that these students can be incredibly sarcastic. Some of them, it may be how they handle their growth and development. And it's super important for us to watch our sarcasm in return. Although some students might be able to handle that, other students that will rock their world, especially if they're, if they're seen by their peers as being embarrassed, and that can really dysregulate them. And it also will really it will really impact their relationship with you. So even though they seem to be sarcastic, watch your sarcasm back with them. What does it look like to co-regulate for adolescents? Again, always goes to providing that warm, responsive relationship and structure, model and monitor and coach in a more sophisticated self-regulation across a variety of contexts. Monitor and coach limits, and make sure that they understand when there's risk taking involved. Give time and space for calming down. Implementing mindful breath breaks and mindful strategies is an important thing. Mindful Schools has a wonderful tutorial if you want. And again, this is on my SEL website. So really providing clear boundaries and consequences for good choices, and incentivize really good choices. So then we get to the high school, and we think they should know this by now because they're 16, 17, 18, 15 to 18, 19 years old. But you know what? Adolescence and maturing into young adults and the demands and complexity for these life transitions is not automatic for them. This is brand new for them. They've never done it before. They don't know how to do it for the most part, and they require our presence and our hearts for them. We're at this point, we're really hoping to help these youngsters become responsible, goal-oriented, compassionate, and understanding human beings. And they really require us to do that with them and to demonstrate that to them and to model that for them. Again, sarcasm is something that we need to be, prepared that might undo these kiddos, these young adults. So it's a lot of sorting of thoughts and feelings, and they can have a huge impact on critical decisions. What does co-regulation look like for young adults? Always, it's about providing warm, supportive relationships. There's a theme going on here. Educators have the best job in the whole wide world because they get to spend so much time building positive connections with youth. And when we have a positive connection with ourselves, and when we're in right perception and thinking about who we are, and we feel grounded in that, and there's an attunement to who we are, then we're able to do that for other people. I know every single one of us, I can remember teachers who had a huge impact on my life, who I felt were beloved educators, and I can remember them from the time I was little all the way through college. I can equally remember and bring to mind, just like that, those educators who were not kind, who shamed either me or my friends or my peers. And I knew the teachers who were there for the pure desire and joy of educating, and I knew those teachers who were there who were just punching the time clock, and I know you know them too. And so it's important for us to think about why we're there, what we're doing, what impact we're having, what lasting effect we want to have on how do we want our students to remember us. Let's skip that. Just breathe. Just build mindful regulation breaks into your day and breathe. Make sure that you're regulated. The only way these children, big and small, are going to be co-regulated or have any chance of co-regulation is if we stay regulated. Again, movement breaks, go noodle, get outside, make sure there's structure, implement brain breaks, teach children about the brain, notice on purpose when kids are getting overwhelmed, and honor rather than be frustrated by it. Take breaks and make a commitment to becoming mindful and implementing social emotional learning into your classroom. The Department of Education has been spending the entire spring and summer building a framework for an SEL curriculum for you, pre-K through grade 12. Hopefully we'll be rolling this out very shortly. There will be tons of modules, free and accessible. SEL is not about a canned program that you pull off the shelf and do, on Tuesday afternoon. It is how we approach teaching and being, remembering that we're teaching human beings, and it starts with us honoring who we are. Please don't forget to take good care of yourselves so that you can take care of one another. self-care is truly not about self-indulgence. It's really about self-preservation. And we need to make this a priority now more than ever before. Please take time to eat. Please take time to drink your water. Take time to use the restroom. Take time to smile, even if it's behind a mask, and know that the Department of Education stands ready to support you and to help you in any way that you may need. I will make sure that the SEL website is up to date. And if you're interested in looking at more in-depth SEL training for yourselves or for your schools and your staff, there's a 5-part series that I put together over the summer that takes you right through self-awareness all the way to responsible decision making, because it first begins with ourselves. Having a better understanding of our own emotional intelligence helps us then to teach emotional development to our students. May you all be well, safe, healthy, and happy. And just know that we're here for you, and we have so much gratitude. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. Take care.